Sharia law is a topic with significant complexity and widespread misunderstanding. Here is a breakdown of what Sharia law is and the most common misconceptions about it. What is Sharia law? At its core, Sharia is not a single, rigid code of laws like the statutes of a modern country. Instead, it is a much broader concept. 1. The meaning and source. Literal meaning. The word Sharia comes from Arabic, meaning the path to water, or the clear, well-trodden path. This implies a divine guide for how to live a righteous and moral life. Source. Muslims believe Sharia is derived from two primary sources: the Quran, the holy book of Islam, believed to be the direct word of God, Allah. The Sunnah, the teachings, actions, and approvals of the Prophet Muhammad, as recorded in collections of hadith narrations. Secondary sources include scholarly consensus, ijma, and analogical reasoning, qiyas, which allow for interpretation and adaptation. 2. A comprehensive way of life. Sharia encompasses all aspects of a Muslim's life, not just criminal law. It is divided into categories that include acts of worship, ibadat, rules for prayer, fasting, charity, and pilgrimage. Transactions and contracts, muamalat, guidelines for business, finance, marriage, divorce, inheritance, and food, e.g., prohibitions on pork and alcohol. Morals and manners, akhlaq, encouraging honesty, kindness, respect for parents, and modesty. Beliefs, aqidah, defining the core tenets of Islamic faith. Punishments, uqubat, the criminal laws that are often the focus of public discourse. 3. Interpretation, fiqh. Sharia is divine and perfect in principle, but its human understanding and application is called fiqh, jurisprudence. This is where different schools of thought, madahib, emerged, e.g., Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, Hanbali. These schools differ in their interpretations based on methodology and context. This means there is no single, monolithic version of Sharia law. Common misconceptions about Sharia. Many misconceptions arise from conflating the ideal principles of Sharia with the harsh, often politically motivated, applications of it in certain countries. 1. Misconception: Sharia is primarily about harsh criminal punishments. Reality: the criminal aspects, hadid punishments, are a very small part of Sharia. These punishments, such as flogging, amputation, or stoning, are for extreme crimes, theft, adultery, etc., and have extremely high standards of proof, making them very rare in classical Islamic legal theory. For example, adultery requires 4 eyewitnesses to the actual act. The vast majority of Sharia deals with personal spirituality, family law, and ethical business conduct. 2. Misconception: Sharia is a threat to non-Muslims and seeks to impose itself on them. Reality: classical Islamic jurisprudence traditionally granted significant rights to religious minorities, known as dhimmis. Under historical Muslim rule, Jewish and Christian communities were allowed to practice their religion and use their own religious laws for personal matters. The concept of imposing Sharia on non-Muslims is not a mainstream Islamic principle. In most modern, religiously diverse societies, the debate around Sharia involves its application for Muslims in personal and family matters, not for the general population. 3. Misconception: Sharia is brutally misogynistic and oppresses women. Reality: this is one of the most complex and debated areas. Historical context: when revealed in 7th century Arabia, many Sharia injunctions were revolutionary for women's rights. They granted women the right to own property, inherit, and seek divorce, rights that were denied to women in many other parts of the world for centuries. Modern interpretation. The issue lies in patriarchal interpretations that have often prioritized certain texts over others. For example, the issue of polygyny is permitted but heavily restricted, and many modern scholars argue its original intent was to provide for widows in a time of war. Similarly, rules around modesty and inheritance are subjects of ongoing reinterpretation by feminist and progressive Muslim scholars who argue that the core spirit of Sharia is justice and equality. 4. Misconception. Sharia is a static, unchanging set of laws. Reality. The principles of Sharia are eternal, but the human understanding of it, fiqh, is meant to be dynamic. The classical legal tradition included tools for interpretation to address new realities. The concept of ijtihad, independent reasoning, allows qualified scholars to derive new rulings for contemporary issues. Many modern Muslim thinkers and reformers are using these tools to address topics like human rights, democracy, and gender equality. 5. Misconception. Muslims want to replace the constitution with Sharia in Western countries. Muslims want to replace the constitution with Sharia in Western countries. Reality. For most Muslims in Western democracies, following Sharia means practicing their faith freely, praying, fasting, giving to charity, and having Islamic wills. The calls for Sharia law in the West are often exaggerated and misunderstood. What is typically sought is legal pluralism in specific areas, such as using Islamic principles in private arbitration for family disputes, e.g., mediation in divorce, similar to how Jewish Beth Din courts operate. This is always within the overarching framework of the national law. To conclude, Sharia is a holistic religious moral code, not just a criminal code. Its human interpretation, fiqh, varies widely, leading to different practices across the Muslim world. The harsh punishments are a tiny, rarely applied part of the whole system. Many perceived Sharia issues are actually the result of cultural practices and patriarchal interpretations, not the fundamental principles themselves. For the vast majority of the world's Muslims, Sharia is a personal guide for piety and ethics, not a political manifesto.